All right, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the privilege to have Phil Masiello on the show. And Phil is the founder and CEO of CrunchGrowth. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, very cool. So a little bit about Philip. He is the author of Think, Engage, Thrive, Marketing Actions to Skyrocket Your Brand in the Digital Age, and working on an upcoming book, Empires and Entrepreneurs, How Business Shaped the World, Stories of Entrepreneurs and Entrepreneurship Throughout History, to be released May 10th. So coming up here real soon. Phil is the founder of CrunchGrowth, revenue acceleration agency, assisting consumer product brands with their e-commerce efforts, social media marketing, and Amazon seller marketing. Phil was also a founder and CEO of 800razors.com, Raw Beauty Inc. with Carol Alt, and The Daily Market, a Washington, D.C. based grab and go meal store chain. So an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. Phil started his first startup at 25 years old, holds an MBA in finance and marketing from University of Maryland, and has remained very active in schools' entrepreneurial programs, is also an active advisor and mentor to several incubators in the Baltimore and Washington marketplace. So Philip, fantastic. I can't wait to go through everything. You no doubt have just a wealth of knowledge and experience in entrepreneurship. Before we get into everything, what's one interesting fact about yourself that not many people know?
Well, before I gained weight, I used to do triathlons all the time.
Oh,
and
okay.
people don't know it because I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just sort of did it. You know, I would train in the mornings, 5 to 7 or 8, and then I would go off on the weekends and do it. My wife knew, obviously, but my family knew, but not many of my friends knew. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't post on social about my forays with it. I just did it sort of. It was a way for me to clear my head mentally and be within myself for a period of time. No phone, no nothing. Nobody could catch me. Nobody could distract me. So,
That's
not
awesome.
many people know I did it.
How many triathlons did you do?
Oh, geez. I can't even count. I mean, I did all sides. I did sprints, Olympic distance, half, full, and then on top of that, I did, cycle races and marathons, half marathons. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I can't even count how many. I mean, I've got a box upstairs with medals in it that are just sitting there.
Just sitting there gathering dust.
Yeah.
I've done one full half marathon, and the reason I did is I needed to lose weight. So I trained up 6 months this thing. I lost like 30 pounds, 40, I don't know what it was, but I finished this thing, and then everything was fine. And then like 2.5, 3 hours later, I couldn't walk. I actually got a hairline fracture during the race, but there was so much endorphins going and everything that I didn't feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit, I guess I can't do these very often. So doing a full marathon, man, my hat's off to you. That's very impressive. Very few people do. Isn't it like some small percentage of Americans actually run a full marathon in their lifetime?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the number is, but yeah, it's not something, it's not something that a lot of people do. I think a lot of people want to do it. But the thing about endurance racing, or in any sport, is really about staying within yourself. And because it's only you. Like, it doesn't matter whether you win or not. It matters whether you finish. But in order to finish, it's all in you. It has to be you communicating with yourself to get you through the hard parts. And the reason that I found it so helpful for me was because in business, so many times, like you hit these walls, and you've got to figure out how to break through, and it's up to you to figure out how to break through. You've got to pivot, or you've got to make decisions, or you got to do all kinds of things. And so if you don't have that ability to look inside yourself and see what you have to do to change, then I don't think that you can always be successful with it. I think that's why a lot of businesses fail. It's not so much because of marketing or money. I think a lot of times people just don't see what they have to do to change their behavior, change the way that they're approaching it, maybe change their inner dialogue about the strategy of the business or whatever. So that's where I found it helpful to me. Because for 3 hours or 4 hours, you're in there by yourself, and it's only you who can get you across that finish line. Nobody else.
Yeah. That's huge, man. Yeah, I love that. So cool. So tell us about CrunchGrowth.
We started, I guess back about 2012 after we sold 800 razors. And my intention was not to start an agency. What had happened was we had so many people that we worked with over the years that once I sold, people were saying, in networking or whatever, saying, what are you going to do now? Can you help me? Because I was in e-commerce since 1998. They were like, hey, can you help me understand what's happening in my business? And I started doing it. I'm not a good consultant. I'm not a consultant at all. And we started, I started working with one company, and then they needed help with, social media. They needed help with ads. They needed help. So I started bringing in people that worked for me. And then the next thing you knew, I had like 5 clients, 6 clients, and all brands, and some large ones, extremely large. And we, it just sort of blossomed. And then we were primarily focused on Amazon and e-commerce advertising. I'd been a seller on Amazon since 2006. Raw Beauty was actually one of the first brands allowed onto the seller platform after books and CDs and all that, when they started allowing other categories on.
Yeah.
And so I had this wealth of knowledge with Amazon. And so people were like, can you help with Amazon? So that's sort of how we started, Amazon e-commerce. And then so a lot of the brands were coming to us because they needed help with their websites. And I'm not a developer, but I did have a lot of, friends who were, and we started, helping people with their websites. I was outsourcing it to a friend of mine's company, and we just merged. So now we have CrunchGrowth Development, which we build apps, we build sites, we do all that, and as well as we help manage it and market it. Come up with your marketing plans, help you with Amazon, help you on Walmart.com, help you on all these places to sell the product. And then it sort of has grown from there. Now we're doing a tremendous amount on social, and I've hired a bunch of younger folks who have the ability on social to build really intriguing videos. So we're doing a lot more video work on social, which is highly effective. It's also good for ads and Amazon as well. So,
oh, very cool, awesome.
Yeah.
And so take us through your journey. So it sounds like one of the big things we were talking about before is really listening to your customers and clients, because had you not done that, you were going down a certain path, and you really pivoted. And so the company's been around, what, 10 years now? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Was it a pretty steady climb? Were there ups and downs, valleys, peaks?
I think there's always ups and downs and valleys and peaks. We had a good run for a period of time, and we actually, here's the funny part. We actually had this deal with South Korea, the South Korean government, for a period of time, because we have clients all over the world now, but they fund a lot of entrepreneurial efforts, a lot of startups, and whenever there was a product that they had that was consumer focused, they would contact us, and we would build out the website, build out the Amazon pages, build out the Amazon storefront, and get it on, wherever it was applicable, Walmart.com, Target.com, wherever we get it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, COVID hit, and that just destroyed that part of the business. And the other part of COVID was we had a couple of brands that were in the auto parts, marine parts, RV, things like that, which just totally fell apart during COVID for about a year. So, there was a period of time there where we were very, very worried, COVID, because if Amazon had locked down a lot of categories, they were only shipping basically the 5 main categories: health and baby and grocery, et cetera, which were what people needed at the time because they couldn't keep up with the demand. So a lot of the brands that we had on Amazon weren't selling. There was no need for them to pay us. So, that was, we took we probably lost about 30% of our revenue in, overnight. And
even with so many other people.
we didn't get rid of anybody. We didn't get rid of any of our people. I have a partner. When we when we merged and took on CrunchGrowth development, but we made a decision that we just wouldn't take salaries for a year, and we would just keep everybody on and try and get as much as we could. And we hustled and had to go out and really try and pick up more business in order to keep everybody employed. It took us about a year and a half, I think, to really fully recover from what we lost. So, but there's always ups and downs, but that one was almost devastating.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So you guys are, your annual revenue, you're up what, 2-3 million, something like that now? You guys are growing that. What, how are you guys, what are you guys doing to get clients?
Well, we do outreach. We do B2B outreach, which we have a process, because we do offer that to some of our most of our clients are consumer product brands, right? We don't work with resellers. We don't work with resellers. We work strictly with brands. That's our comfort space, in e-commerce. And but we do have a couple of clients who are manufacturers, or in things like, construction or concrete or whatever. And so we've built out sort of a B2B process for outreach for them, to get them clients. So we started doing that for ourselves. But the bulk of our clients come from referrals from our existing client base, or from people who meet me at events, or things like that, where we can help them. Unlike a lot of agencies, we have our sweet spot, which is brands that are doing between 100 million and up in revenue.
Okay.
So they can afford to advertise. But we do, because I'm so entrenched with startups and and advisors in some of these incubators and things, we do have a decent amount of startups that we help, where we work out different deals, where it's not, they don't have a lot of money, but we think that the idea is good. We think that the product is good. We'll do what we can to sort of help them. Maybe we'll exchange, services for equity. We've done a couple of deals like that with some good products, because I do believe in giving back to the entrepreneurial community and keeping it healthy and keeping it rolling. So,
yeah, I love equity deals, man. You have to believe in your client, and there's got to be, obviously a lot of great discussion and a lot of congruency and everything else in alignment. But do you feel like is that a potentially a greater opportunity for your company to get in the long run an equity deal with folks? Or
if you can get the product to over the hurdles, right? See, that's where we're good, because we've been there. So we can offer guidance, we can offer understanding. We look at the product, and if we see that we can help through our marketing knowledge, through our systems, if we see that we can help them grow. The thing about startups is, the first money in, and technically that's who you are, right? Even if you're not putting direct cash in, and you're just generating services in exchange for equity or something like that, that first money in is always the riskiest money. And so, what happens is there could be a point in time when they plateau to a different level and they need more money, and you could wind up taking a bit of a haircut. But it depends on how we structure the deals. It could be lucrative, but sometimes you wind up, sometimes it doesn't work, and you wind up having invested, 2 years and a lot of effort and a lot of time, and it's just not clicking. So,
yeah, gotcha. Awesome. So in our pre-call, when I asked what you're most proud of as a CEO, you said is impacting people's lives and creating that environment where your employees can feel free to express themselves and make recommendations, improvements about all the stuff that you're doing. Tell us more about that and how you created that environment.
Well, I think, you have to have respect for whoever you have working around you. You've got to have a good sense of hiring the right people. I hire a lot of young people that maybe don't have the experience that, some other people would hire, but I see something in them that I think they could do well. Maybe they're a great content writer, right? Maybe they're a great creative person. They have great ideas that we can then translate into social. So if you look at what people do and you give them the opportunity and you sort of help guide them, you tell them it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to come back to me and say, I think you're all washed up, Phil, and do things like that in a constructive way. You can't do it rudely to me. You have to, we have meetings, but we don't have a high pressure environment. We're focused on our clients and we're focused on the brands and what they need. But it's not like we're constantly pounding to generate more revenue, generate more revenue. We're not doing that. We're more interested in the results, and we're more interested in seeing what happened and trying things. And we talk about it with our clients. We say, look, you could have the most off the wall idea. We'll help you get there, because I don't know if it's right or wrong until we try it. And my folks are all into that. So we've sort of created this environment where they can try things, they can do things. I'm not going to cut their head off if we make a mistake. And as long as we tried and we did it correctly, and I think they start appreciating it, and that culture sort of permeates. But, and then you have to also think about what's going on in their personal lives. I've been a remote worker since I think 2006, because we had a manufacturer for raw beauty. We had a manufacturer, and then we had, we were selling on the shopping channels, and we had Carol, who was, a former supermodel, and we were doing PR. So we were constantly on the road traveling. We didn't really have an office or need one, and we communicated with people. So we learned how to communicate with people remotely. Now when we built this, we did have an office. We still have an office. We have one in Maryland. We have one in Michigan. But, people can choose to go or not choose to go. If there's a need to go, then yeah, we all get together if we have to have a meeting. But, respecting people's time, I find that, I know people are down on remote work, but I find that people are more productive when they're working from home, especially if they're young and they have a new family and they've got a child, and they don't have to worry about, daycare, and they don't have to worry about getting the kids on and off the bus. I find that they work later into the evening. Instead of 8 hours, you're getting 10 hours out of them, because they're happy to get the work done. They're less stressed in their lives. So
yeah, and I would imagine that even if, my experience has been, even if they are only getting 8 hours, or even if you're getting 6 hours when they were putting in 8 hours before, in a virtual at home, they're a lot more focused. I've noticed but that's what I hear from other people. And there's no water cooler talk. There's no this or that. I mean, there's, you still have Slack and all that kind of stuff, but it's my understanding that people are able to be a lot more productive in less time.
I think people are less stressed,
less stress. Yeah, totally.
Here there's traffic right in the morning. We have an office downtown, and to get to that office, it's only, I think, 6 miles from where I live, but it could take me
30 minutes.
It could take me 35 minutes, 40 minutes. You're sitting in traffic, and that gets into your head, and then you get to the office and you got to calm down. So you've lost all this time driving, then you've lost time in the office calming down. I think that, if you do it right and you have respect for the people and you let them know, but again, they have to deliver on their promise. My promise is I'll treat you with respect. I'll give you a job. Your promise is you'll get the work done. We'll do it to the best of our abilities, and we'll keep everybody happy.
Yeah. There was a couple things I forget where I read it, but it was saying that what most people want now is not a pure remote and not a pure work-in, but kind of like this hybrid, almost like 3 days at home, 2 days at work. But then it also went on to say that the most effective companies, and this is where a lot of remote work has fallen down, right, is many companies don't have KPIs in place or ways to measure the productivity of each individual, each project, and each team. And then therefore they're gauging their performance on the number of hours that they're worked. And that's not the right way to do it.
No, No, you have to work on, I don't care. Like I tell my folks all the time, I don't care if you get the job done between, 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. or if you get the job done between noon and
Yeah.
midnight. As long as we get the job done and it's done correctly and it's done on time for the client and it's done the way that they want it. The KPIs for us are always sales, right? Because the client, it doesn't matter. The client always wants more sales, right? So we're focused on building ads. Those ads have to deliver clicks to the site. They have to, and the site has to then convert into sales. Same thing on Amazon, right? We spend money on advertising. We spend effort on Amazon SEO, so to speak, optimizations and trying to get more sales. So it's always sales, even social media, right? It's not that you want a direct sale from social. What you're going to get out of social is brand building, and you want to do things that are going to keep your client's brand in the heads of the viewers. So if you're doing things on social that they interact with, they're going to remember you when it comes time to buy, whatever pasta sauce or hot sauce or whatever the brand is at the time. So
yeah. And you had mentioned that in your first startup, I think you said you were 27, something like that, that you learned a pretty heavy lesson there to really how to lead and delegate instead of trying to do everything yourself.
Oh, it was a disaster. My first startup was a total
disaster. I love disaster stories. Let's hear it, man.
It was awful. So I grew up in the restaurant business, and I thought that was going to be my path. I thought, I'm going to own a restaurant and do it. And then
right.
I went to college. I was working in, the hotel. I went to college in Miami. Was working in the hotels and restaurants down there, to earn some money. And I decided I don't want to do this because the lifestyle is horrible. I'm working, you're working until 1 o'clock in the morning, and, it wasn't a good lifestyle, but I still liked food. So I opened up a food store. Now I did have a background in cooking. I learned how to cook at an early age, learned how to cook in restaurants and things like that when I was in high school. And so I started this specialty stores, like gourmet food store in New York. I grew up in New York, and then, it was like a Balducci's, if you've ever been one, or something like that, where you came in and there were cases of prepared foods and cases of, but it was a retail store. Specialty foods are like a Whole Foods, where you go into the deli section, prepared food section. So, but it was just a store. And then we started doing catering, right? So most of the food I could teach people how to do, but they didn't know it as well as I did. So I could do it really fast, whereas I'd have to train people to do it. So most of the people I had on the counters, and I'd be in the back, creating stuff. And I had a couple of people that I was working with that I would do the prep work and things like that. And then we started doing catering, off-premise catering.
Yeah.
And like a fool, instead of utilizing outsourcing and getting a guy who puts up the tent and getting a guy who puts up the tables and getting a guy who brings the chairs and the silverware and all that, like a fool, I thought, why should I rent that stuff when I can buy it and
sure
it could be mine? But then you need to
go into debt real quick.
So now I've taken the business and way overcomplicated it, right?
Yeah.
So now I've got to figure out how to get that done while I'm still running this store. And then, as you may know about the catering business, it's really busy from, say, April until September, October, and then it dies. So the genius that I am, I said, well, I can't have this lull in the business, so I'm going to start wholesaling some of these cakes that we make that people really love, which only I can make, because nobody else, I can't transfer that skill. I can't teach them. It's just not enough time. So now I'm running around like a one-armed paper hanger. I've got a bunch of people. I can't teach them. I'm not good at delegating. I'm just a total disaster. And I was exhausted. In 3 years, I was just exhausted. I'm working 7 days a week. I'm working 14, 16-hour days. And I'm sitting there going home at night, saying, I'm an idiot. I'm just not smart here. Something's wrong. And so I had the opportunity to sell the business in parts. Somebody wanted to buy the store. Somebody else wanted the catering book.
You're like, yes, please.
So I sold it, made a little bit of money, but not nearly what I should have, or And I took the money, and that's when I went to University of Maryland graduate school. I came down to here and went to University of Maryland, got my MBA, because I thought, hey, I am stupid and I need a better education, because what I just did was a total disaster.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it was just, and I said to myself, never again, and I'll have a plan, and I'll figure out how to organize things, and I'll hire the right types of people, and I, learn leadership and learn how to delegate, and use my head a little bit more, not think so much about control as much as outsourcing and getting the job done correctly. So
Yeah, it's funny when most people start a business, they do something that they know how to do, right? And then they hire people out of necessity versus, being very intentional about creating that business, that's, having that, okay, 5 years from now, this is what it's going to look like, and continually building towards that huge difference. So, it's E-Myth revisited all over again, right?
yeah, and to raise a quote from there, I was spending no time working on the business and 100% of my time working in the business.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, awesome. Well, hey man, so if you were going to hire a CEO to take the reins for your company, what's the one book that you would require he or she read before taking over for you, and why is that?
The Art of War. I think I'm fascinated by that book and its relationship to business. I had a marketing teacher in college who made us read it, and there was just something about it. It's not so much the stories. You can read that book as a series of stories, or you can read that book in more in depth and think about the strategy behind those stories. And that strategy behind those stories is what you think about every day, which is, how to build a team, right? He's building an army, I'm building a team, right? How to motivate that team, how to get that team to achieve the goal, right? So it's like I said, you can read that book as a bunch of stories, or you could read that book as a strategy behind the stories. And I love it. I love to talk about it with people who have read it. I don't know if you know what forums are when in entrepreneurial world, like you have these forums where you get together with other entrepreneurs, other business owners, and you sort of talk about problems that you have, and they help you think through it. Very helpful. And a lot of people have read that book, and we've had, discussions about it, almost like a book club about what people get out of it. And it's amazing how many different things people get out of that book.
Oh,
And I always go back to it. I probably read it once a year.
Yeah, gotcha. I actually, believe it or not, have not read it. I had someone else on the podcast a little bit ago who had recommended. I got the book, but I need to read it, so I need to do that. Phil, awesome having you on the show today. If there was one takeaway that you would, really want the upcoming CEO or upcoming leader to absorb, what would that be?
I think, you focus on the customer and focus on the changes in the customer and what's happening with them, and get your team aligned with focusing on the customer. And I think one of the best ways we've done it, and we've pushed this out to a lot of our clients, is, you can sit there and look at who the customer is demographically and psychographically on a piece of paper, but until you build a brand persona and give that brand persona a name and say, this is who I'm marketing to, because now you're marketing to a person, right? Now it's somebody. It's not something abstract. And I think that goes a long way, because any business that you're in, you've got customers, and you have to focus on who those customers are and what their needs are and what they're changing to, or else you get static and you fall behind.
Yeah. Awesome. And there's a couple things I had a couple takeaways I'll add to it that I thought were really good today is really being flexible, listening to your clients. Like from your standpoint, you had clients that came to you and said, "Hey, do you know anyone that can help us with websites?" And you weren't currently doing that. You had enough people that asked for that. So listening to your clients and being able to pivot, and that ended up now being, one of your mainstays. So the other thing I thought was an interesting, when you kind of talked about, if you try to force the plan that you originally set, instead of being flexible, then it's almost like you're going against the universe instead of just going with the flow and kind of allowing things to happen. The other one I thought was is of course lead and delegate. And you had 3 years of just hitting your head against a wall, stressing out, not making the money you need to because you can't scale because you're the one doing it, and just instead of being intentional about, even if revisited, about creating that business
Yeah,
that creates pies without you being the pie maker, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, Phil, if any of our listeners wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, either for services, either to help them sell their brand on Amazon or e-commerce or anything like that, or any questions from today, what's the best way they could do that?
Well, they can email me at phil@crunchgrowth.com. Very simple. Or they can go
Cool.
look at crunchgrowth.com, and you can contact us there.
Awesome. Very good. And Phil, for the listeners, we'll have Phil's LinkedIn profile handle on our website as well. So Phil, thanks for being on the show, man. This was great.
Hey, thanks for having me. I thought it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners, please hit the like and subscribe button and help us spread the word about the show and what we're doing here. We're helping the next generation of leaders and CEOs be that much more successful. With that, this is Patrick Rogers, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot.